Hello, I'm Bill Irwin, professional clown and lover of great silent comedies. The silent comics of the 1920s, like our nation's brand of government, like baseball, like jazz music, are a peculiarly American form of expression, and we're blessed to have them as part of our cultural heritage. Though the 1920s saw a refining of the raw energies of film's earliest years, film comedy was still very much a physical art, and its practitioners were graduates of vaudeville knockabout comedy for the most part. Many of these earliest film comics played, well, I guess you'd say, they played broadly. A reaction shot in 1919 was likely to be something like this. But as films went from 10 to 20 minutes, then to feature length, and tastes changed, comics with a more sustained sense of presence came to the fore. Next, we present films by a great artist, and, I confess, a particular hero of mine. The silent film comedian with his own sense of stillness, Buster Keaton. October 4th, 1995 would have been Buster Keaton's 100th birthday, and you're about to see The Cameraman, made in 1928, which he called one of his pet pictures, and about which he said, it's one of the simplest stories you can find, which was always a great thing for us if we could find it. Though Keaton's production effects were often very complicated, bridges burning, trains falling, his storytelling was simple, and where many silent film actors would often underline a story point, Keaton usually found a way to understate a reaction with what pantomime comics used to call doing the dog. Keaton never talked like an auteur filmmaker, even though he was one of the great movie-making geniuses of all time. Here's a simple Keatonian way to make something happen to a character. It's a trick that special effects film directors are still using. You take a piece of fishing line, you attach it to something, and then you have one of the unpredictable forces of the universe. Wind. Keaton often used to say, it's best in comedy to think slow, then act fast, and that's what you'll see with this great clown. You'll see him ruminate for a moment, then quick action. And a quick reappearance. Keaton was famous for leaving the frame and then reappearing surprisingly. You'll see one of those moves in The Cameraman when Buster's rival for the girl appears at the swimming pool. What are things to watch for in The Cameraman? So many great sequences. Buster sharing a dressing cubicle with a stranger. Buster imagining himself a baseball player standing in Yankee Stadium. Yet everything just grows simply out of the sweet story known as The Cameraman. Hope you enjoy it. Hi, I'm Bill Irwin, professional clown and lover of silent film comics. Of the thousands of films made before sound, back when all movies were silent movies, the ones we remember most, of course, are the comedies. The great silent comedies of the teens and the 20s, the era that we still, after 70 years, often call the golden age of comedy. The performers who appeared in these films were usually graduates of the vaudeville and the music hall stage, and they started doing this new thing called movies, usually with a basic set of skills. Generally, they could all make faces, walk funny, hit each other, and fall down. These were characters with immediate problems. Things falling on their toes. Things swinging at their heads. All of these situations they set up and they played without the spoken word. Next, we're about to watch a film by a great comedian. One who had all of these skills, but also that indefinable ability as an actor, a storyteller, to support longer stories, what came to be called the feature-length films. This is an artist whose characters faced all of these dilemmas with the brash and the optimistic energy of the American go-getter. That regular fella, the guy next door, Harold Lloyd. Now, ironically, Harold Lloyd began his career, like many other beginning comics, including Stan Laurel, as a Charlie Chaplin imitator. Such was the power of the little Tramp at the box office. But Lloyd, thankfully for all of us, found an American character, a regular guy who manages to get himself in so much trouble and spends so much energy trying to pull off his schemes, which usually involve making someone believe he is someone he isn't. Great lengths for the sake of appearances. Often Harold Lloyd getting his characters into trouble begins so simply, so plausibly. And it makes a certain strange sense that soon, this very cautious-seeming guy is in a very perilous situation. With Harold Lloyd, like all the great silent comedians, just trying to get the job done was usually where his troubles began. Harold Lloyd became known as the king of daredevil comedy, and he gave us striking images of perilous danger. And when Lloyd shot these scenes, they really were way up there in the air. He worked either on the front of a building or on a set built on the top of a building. No rear screen then. And he devised and performed these scenes missing the thumb and forefinger of his right hand. He'd lost these fingers in a freak accident a couple years before the making of Safety Last. Well, if you hear amazement in my voice, it's because I am truly in awe of this artist who made films like we're about to see after the physical setback of an accident. There are lots of great things to watch for in this movie, things way up in the air, but great bits at ground level, too. I think my favorite is Lloyd and his sidekick, Bill Struther, hiding from their landlady. You'll see it. It's a terrific movie with no spoken words. Safety Last. Hope you enjoy it. Hello, I'm Bill Irwin, professional clown and lover of great silent film comedies. The baggy pants tradition of stage comedy, the vaudeville, the music hall, the English pantomime, this is where the physical comedians came from who first made those movies. These are the people who stood in front of those hand-crank cameras, quickly adjusted wardrobe, took action, and made the world laugh. These were skilled performers. They could mug, take a fall. They really knew their stuff. A couple of these comedians instinctively had an understanding of how this new medium worked. They knew how to alter their performance from the wide stage eye to the isolated camera eye. And one comic with a wild, balletic sense of movement and a subtle sense of character took one day a false mustache, stuck it on, grabbed a cane and a derby hat, and became a Hollywood icon, the great, great Charlie Chaplin. There was a sadness to Chaplin's little Tramp character. Chaplin himself had had a miserable upbringing, and he seemed to draw upon that to create this character, a guy always looking for the way to fit in with the rest of society, determined to make it, but somehow usually at least one step out of place. Chaplin was the first screen comic to know how to put himself at the center of a troubled universe. And in a Chaplin film like The Gold Rush, the classic that we're about to see, that troubled universe could usually be found waiting just the other side of a door. With his innate sense of comic timing and his brilliance in the editing room, whatever mishap the Tramp got caught up in, Chaplin brought him back to his feet. In The Gold Rush, whether the little Tramp is making dinner out of a shoe or hanging from a precipice, whatever the mishap, whatever the problem, the Tramp overcomes everything and usually ends up little the worse for wear. And now from 1925, a great film, The Gold Rush. Hi, I'm Bill Irwin, professional clown and lover of great silent film comedies. I'm back with the second film in our Silent Sunday tribute to the world's best-loved little tramp, Charlie Chaplin. It's the 1914 comedy Tilly's Punctured Romance, but an interesting twist on our collective memory of Chaplin. With this film, he's not on screen as the little tramp. Chaplin had actually already created what would become his trademark character a few months earlier in a short film called Mabel's Strange Predicament. But when Tilly's Punctured Romance came along so quickly after shooting Predicament, neither the audiences nor Max Sennett, who happened to be Chaplin's boss, had yet typed Chaplin as that little tramp. Little did anyone know how endearing and iconic that one character would become to the history of Hollywood. So here, in Tilly's Punctured Romance, you get a real treat. It's trademark Chaplin antics, but without the trademark bowler hat, baggy pants. And, in a screen rarity, Chaplin gets to strut his talents as a villain. Chaplin plays a fortune hunter who is after the farm girl, Tilly, for her money, of course. Tilly, played by Marie Dressler in her screen debut. Even though he is cast as a villain, you can't help rooting for Chaplin during the courtship. Such was his power as a performer. Late in the film, the duo share a wild dance scene. That's a textbook example of two clowns in perfect two-step with each other. Now, from 1914, here's the great Charlie Chaplin in what film historians often call the first feature-length comedy made in America. It's Tilly's Punctured Romance.